Hi everyone, and welcome back for another part of Demon Soul. Last week we finished with a little demon appearing out of nowhere. So let's see what's gonna happen next. Demon Soul, Chapter 3. She tried to dry the tears on the little demon's face, but much more kept on coming. His restless wings had turned dark green in fear. She sat on the armchair and wrapped him with a blanket. "It's a bit cold," she started, stroking his back gently between his wings. "Everything is gonna be just fine. Don't cry." The baby demon looked up at her and attempted to smile, more tears falling from his blinking eyes. It seemed that her voice was reassuring him. On the opposite side of the room, the hidden door leading to the library opened slowly, and Gideon appeared. He looked at Brownie, taken aback. "What are you doing here? And who is this?" He pointed at the little demon, who hid against Brownie and clung at her frenetically. She made a sign for Gideon to stay quiet, cradling more. "Everything is fine, I'm here, and there is nothing to worry about," she said softly. Then she looked up at Gideon. "I have the same question for you. I felt that a lot of magic was coming from this room." His voice was very low, like a whisper. He looked around. "No, I understand why." The rest of Brownie's ritual were still strewn over the floor. "What have you been doing?" he asked. "How do you know about this room?" Brownie preferred to ask him more questions than to have to answer his. "I'm coming here often, when I don't want to be disturbed." He came closer to her and looked at the baby. "He doesn't look well. We better bring him to Mom." "Why are his wings so green? I never saw a baby like that before." "It's because he's scared. We can't take him away from here. You know how people react each time moms bring back a baby from the dark side." Gideon looked at the wings more closely. This was obviously a little demon. "But what are you gonna do then?" he asked. "First, I will need your help. He is really frozen. Could you start a fire?" Gideon walked to the chimney and started to pile up wood. The baby lifted his head up and started to look at him shyly. As Gideon stood back, he hid against Brownie's arm. "What is worrying me the most is that he's crying so much without sound," Brownie said. "Maybe he's just deaf and mute," Gideon guessed. "I don't think so. Even deaf makes some kind of noise, especially a crying baby. And he seems to react to my voice. Could you get me a book?" Brownie asked. "I'm not sure you'll find that kind of thing in a book." "You have no idea what you can find in books these days. I'm telling you. It's called Raise Your Baby Demon. It must be on the second shelf on the top on the right side when you go out of here." "No kidding," Gideon said, opening big eyes. He went to get the book, wondering how she could know how to find that kind of thing so precisely in the library. The baby grabbed Brownie's moving hand. He was getting a bit warmer. "You see, Gideon made us a very good fire. Soon it will be all nice and warm, so stop crying, please." Brownie was getting a bit nervous seeing him crying that much. Gideon came back, plunged in the book. "Baby demon seems to be a lot more complicated than a normal one," he said, walking back towards them, still reading. "Look." He showed her a picture of a newborn baby. "They are supposed to cry forever until they don't have tears anymore. Then their voice will appear. That way they don't make noise when they are in danger, and they learn to be in pain quietly." Brownie read the end of the paragraph. "And they need to drink a lot, or they can be dehydrated." She wiped away the baby's tear once more. "You must be really thirsty now." Gideon turned the page. "Whoa, that's complicated." Brownie threw an eye on the book. For the first 3 days of the baby needed to drink a very particular sort of water. The list of ingredients and the preparation mode was given below. I'll go to the kitchen to prepare that, Gideon said. But where does this child come from anyway? Bronnie sighed. If Gideon was going to be in this with her, he deserved to know the truth. He appeared at the end of the ritual. She tried to swallow in her dry throat. When I was recalling you, soul. I see, Gideon said pensively. You tried that a lot, didn't you? You needed you to be here to do that, so that the soul would have become back where it belonged. You should have asked me for help, Gideon added. Bronnie didn't answer and looked at the baby. She knew he would have told her that it was too dangerous, like everybody else. She sighed. Of course she needed you to be here. How could she have been so stupid? I'll be back as soon as I'm done with the drink, Gideon added, suddenly starting to feel a bit uncomfortable. Make plenty, it has to last 3 days, Bronnie said. Don't worry, I'll have enough for the night at least, Gideon answered before running out of the room, leaving her with the baby. Life is pretty hard for you right at the start, isn't it? He looked at her, moving his lips as if he was trying to imitate a sound, but nothing came out. All she was sure about now was that it was her mistake and her responsibility. She wiped his tear again. The blanket was starting to grow really wet. He seemed he wanted to speak again. Take it easy, the sun will come. You just need to be patient. He seemed to hear that. He was trying to smile. The color of his wings was becoming lighter. You have no idea what I'm talking about, do you? As long as I'm talking, you're happy, is that it? The little demon blinked several times and stroked his eyes. You're probably very tired now. As soon as Gideon comes back with a baby bottle and that you have drunk everything like a good boy, you'll go to sleep. That sounds like a lot of fun, doesn't it? The more she talked, the paler his wings were becoming, which was reassuring. Are you still scared? What could have been so scary? Did I have a funny face? She was shaking her head, and the baby was following the movement with his. She took the book with her free hand. I need to read all that, you know. That way, I will make sure that you're a happy little devil. She had called you that a lot, a little devil. She felt like this baby had stolen his soul once more, but at least it was protected now. Gideon came back with the baby bottle and baby pajamas. That one of ours, he said. Mom had made a hole for the wings in it just in case. Yeah, I remember. Just because his wing grew when he was dreaming of flying and stayed stuck in his normal pajama. Bronnie laughed softly and took the pajama. Thanks. The blanket is all wet. I'm worried he would get cold. They say here that he needs a temperature of 39.5 degrees for the first 2 weeks. Then it will depend on the power he's supposed to get. Let me see, Gideon said, and he seized the book as Bronnie put the baby in his pajamas. Oh, you look so cute, she said. The more she was looking at him, the more he was stealing her heart, just like you had done before. Gideon laughed. I'm sure he doesn't have a clue what you're talking about. That's pretty much girl talk. At least he's not scared anymore, Bronnie said. The baby wings were now light blue, matching the color of the pajamas. Apparently, Gideon said, holding the baby bottle out to Bronnie. As it reached his lips, he bit it with his little fang, piercing the soft plastic. Then the warm liquid started to flow in his mouth. His wing took a pinkish color. At least we won't need to worry about him growing teeth, Gideon said. That's good, because there are a lot of other things to worry about. Bronnie listened to the list of frightening illness the little demon would have to go through. At least we know about it, she sighed, looking at the adorable little demon drinking his baby bottle avidly, with a firm intention not to let anything ever harm him. The little fang chewing the baby bottle finally broke it, and the liquid started to flow on the baby's cheek. Hey, not so fast! Bunny pulled the baby bottle up and removed the plastic piece from his mouth before he could swallow it. I'm pretty sure that he would laugh if he could. The baby was trying to get his bottle back. We will need something stronger, Bronnie said. This is a bit dangerous. Give it to me. Gideon took the bottle and the broken piece, and pulled his magic wand out of his sleeve. He put the tip of it on the edge of the broken bottle and pulled a thin rope of plastic out of it, which he attached to the broken piece, that fell back in due place. "You've gotten pretty good at that," Bronnie smiled, seeing how easily it had become for Gideon to repair anything. In her arms the baby demon was looking at the little wizard impatiently. "I better be," Gideon said. With a number of broken toys, exploding things, and accidents of all kinds happening in the house every single day, repairing things had become Gideon's main activity. No wonder he needed his sacred room to escape from the task from time to time. "I'm going to make it stronger too, so that it doesn't break any more." "Don't make it too strong, that would hurt his teeth." Feeling that they were talking about it, the baby started to clap, and looked strangely at his hand, amazed by his own noise. Gideon gave him the bottle back, and he started to drink, as avidly as before. "I better go make some more. It looks like he's going to drink all night." Gideon yawned, walking away. The night was promising to be long. "Thanks," Bronnie said. She was glad not to be alone taking care of the baby. It was so unexpected, and she didn't have a clue about what to do. "No problem. But while I'm away, you better think of a name. This kid needs to be called something nice." Gideon disappeared in the library once more. She never really thought about names before, even while talking about it with you. All happened so suddenly. She remembers the ritual. She remembered concentrating more deeply than she ever did before, so deeply that she couldn't see anything else than the fire of the candle. She remembers the cold wind that made almost all her hope disappear. And now he was here. "What are we going to call you? Do you have any idea?" The sound of their voice made the baby agitate his little wings. She got up, wrapped him in a blanket, which had dried near the fire. New warmth makes the baby wings turn more deeply pink. "That feels good, doesn't it? That's because the library is always a bit cold, and we're going there to find you a name. What do you think of that? Would you like to have a name?" The baby was stroking his cheek on the warm blanket and drinking, without really caring about the word he couldn't understand. Bronnie took the stairs to the third floor, looking for naming books. She was wondering why her life had started to be so related to books recently. Before Hugh's accident, she wasn't reading that much, just the necessary for school and fashion magazines. Thinking about that, she felt like it had been ages since she opened one. "I must be growing up," she thought. She went through the books on the first shelf, but couldn't find anything. It was a history section, and she didn't want to call the baby Julius Caesar or Genghis Khan. She looked at him and smiled. "You're way too cute for that," she said. She remembered how Hugh hated it each time she was saying something about him being cute or nice, but that still didn't mean he wasn't. "Do you hate it too? You probably don't care yet. So, for the moment, I will just say what I want." He looked at her curiously and made her laugh softly. In the next shelf, she found them. African names, European names, mythological names. There were so many of them that she didn't really know where to start. "Supernatural naming," she read. That one looked like a good starting point, along with powerful demon in the 16th century. She was starting to go back when a book fell on the floor behind her. She looked at it. "How to create a name for your baby." That sounded interesting. She took it along and started to walk back to the secret room, not noticing the dark shadow disappearing quickly at the end of the row. Carrying a book and a baby together was proven more difficult than expected, especially when he wasn't so good at holding his bottle by himself. When it was dropped for the third time, she decided to wait before giving it back. It was almost finished anyway. When she arrived in the secret room, Gideon was already there, waiting for her with some more drinks. "Where have you been?" he asked, taking the boot out of Bronnie's hands to relieve her. "Looking for a name on the third floor. As I don't have any idea of what a demon should be called," she answered. Gideon sighed. "That is just going to make it worse. I can't understand how people can ever choose anything when there are so many possibilities. No need to add more to it." Bronnie sat on the armchair. Gideon pushed closer to the fire. The short trip to the cold library had been enough to decrease the baby's body temperature, How can he get cold so fast? Gideon asked, putting his hand on the baby's forehead. Because he cannot maintain his temperature for the moment. It's all in that book. Brownie made a sign towards the book on the table, and Gideon grabbed it, pursuing the reading he had left to go to the kitchen. Brownie started to go through the naming book, and after 2 hours she still hadn't found anything. She thought that Gideon was right. She was just getting more confused. She sighed softly. Gideon had fallen asleep on the table. She had told him to go to bed 1 hour ago, but he wouldn't listen. He wanted to know the baby's name first, he had said. The baby had fallen asleep in her arm, too, clinging at her sleeves, probably to make sure she wouldn't go away. Even while sleeping, the tears wouldn't stop falling from his eyes. She wondered why Demon needed to shed so many tears so young, and why they had to go through so much pain during their generally short lifetime. Thinking that the little one sleeping in her arms so peacefully now would have a destiny such as his was tearing her heart apart. Maybe she could help him avoid it. Maybe she could protect him better than she had been able to protect you. Regaining hope, she took the last book laying near her on the armchair. How to create a name for your baby, she started to read. Nothing is more difficult than finding a name, it said, and she couldn't agree more. But nothing is easier than finding the right name. This time, this was becoming ridiculous. She had already spent 2 hours going through more demons' names than she ever heard in her entire life. She had seen more than probably anyone else in this house, and nothing really matched. How could it be that easy? For 1 second she was tempted to close the book and to throw it through the room out of frustration. That would at least relieve her nerves, dying for sleep. But she was starting to despair, ever finding something, so she decided to give it a try anyway. First, you need to picture yourself, the baby, and to make a very clear picture of it in your mind. Nothing easier, it was just sleeping in her arms. Then, you have to imagine the scenery around it. Put some color, make them brighter, and add the element. Does it make you feel like it is more attached to water, fire? For a second, Brownie thought about water. She wiped once more the tear rolling on the baby's face. But she was suddenly struck by the fire or wind. He was born from the fire of the candle, and the powerful cold wind had carried him to her. She continued to read. All the color, elements, temperatures, tone, signification were listed. Then came some example of name, for some different combination, but nothing that seems to be the right one. On the last page was only written 1 sentence. Now close your eyes, create the picture, and the name will come to you. Brownie was not really convinced, but she had run out of possibilities. She closed her eyes and created the picture. She let her mind be carried away by it. She saw the cold wind sea entering the desert, felt the warm sun which was creaking under her feet. It was of incomparable light yellow color, so pure. She continued to walk deeply in the desert until she met a shining purple fire, which reminded her of youth's beautiful soul dancing in his eyes. For a moment she felt like turning back, like opening her eyes, but an unknown force pushed her forward, and then she heard it. It was coming from her own throat. Sahel. She opened her eyes, slowly, repeating the name. Sahel. Something deep inside her felt like it was oddly familiar. She looked at the little demon, who was now sucking his thumb, his pileful breath moving his chest up and down slowly, and she repeated the name once more. Sahel. That was absolutely perfect. Hearing her speak, Gideon woke up. He stroked his eyes. The book had left a red mark on his cheek and ear. Did you say something? He asked, yawning. How long did I sleep? Not long enough. You would have been better in your bed, Brownie whispered, trying not to awake Sahel. I find him a name, she smiled, proud of herself. Tell me quickly, so we can all go to bed. Sahel, Brownie said. Pronouncing it made her curiously happy. That's nice, let's go. Gideon stood up and walked to the door, Bunny pulled the blanket higher on Sail's shoulder. "You're not coming?" Gideon asked, realizing that she didn't move. "I can't. It will be way too cold for him out of here. It's probably not warm enough here already. I don't want him to get sick." Brownie answered. "Just go. We'll be okay." Gideon turned back to add some more wood in the fire before leaving the room. He came back a few minutes later with some more blankets that he put on Brownie's shoulders. "We'll figure out something more comfortable tomorrow," he said, bringing the baby bottle up to Brownie's reach. "Sure, as long as you bring me breakfast, I'll be happy," Brownie said. Gideon laughed. "Of course. Good night." "Good night, thanks," Brownie said, looking at him while he closed the secret door. Brownie started to wonder how she would be able to keep Sail's existence secret. It was going to be very difficult, especially because she couldn't think a second about leaving him alone in the room. He was looking so small and so fragile, with the tears that kept on streaming on his cheek, and his little wings changing color with a slight change in the environment. She mainly apprehended the reaction of her siblings. Having a demon in the family wasn't going to be an easy thing to accept. She remembered how hard it had been on her when everybody started to tell her how much Hugh wasn't good for her, how dangerous he was, and how much he could hurt everybody around. That was all they could see in him, the demon part. With the wings in his back, he couldn't really hide it. Being hated for what you were, without even having done anything wrong, that was a demon fate. She knew it, and she wanted to avoid it for Sail. Even if she was seriously aware that she couldn't keep him away from the world forever. She wondered why what she could see in Hugh had been so different from what everybody else was seeing. She could feel his pain and sadness hiding behind his careless smile when people were throwing him such painful words. She knew how deeply worried he was when she got sick and how much he had loved her. She had seen it all, the very mean sides that kept him from being hurt, and his very soft sides that made her hold on so tight to him. "Don't worry, it's normal for a demon to feel in love," he had said, as Isakael was once more trying to come between them. Being an angel wasn't making him any nicer than anybody else. She had held you so tightly that day, wanting so much to keep him warm in her arms forever. "Then I'm going to make you feel love every day," she had answered, and it had made him laugh. She thought sadly that he probably never realized how much he could love him, how much he could love a demon like him until the end. Before he met her, nobody had ever been so nice with him. But she promised herself that it would be different for Sail, that she would fight for him and only show him love from the first instant, that she wouldn't let him go through what you went through. She would have done the same for their child, if they ever had one. And that was what she had been doing from the very first second when she grabbed him in her arm at the end of the ritual, giving him what you never believed possible to deserve. Trying not to think about the next day, she fell asleep. She was awoken by a cold and wet sensation on her hand. The fire was extinguished, and Sail was trembling in her arm. Deeply worried, she quickly added wood in the chimney and started the fire again, holding the little demon against her chest. "I'm so sorry. It's going to be okay soon, sweetie. Hold on." She then removed the wet blanket and wiped him with hers. He was leaking so helpless, not even able to make a sound when he was feeling so bad. She hung out the baby blanket on the side to dry it, and sat on the floor near the fire, stroking Sail's back gently, trying to warm him up, and feeling terrible. What would happen if he had gotten cold while getting water power? What would happen if he got too warm while getting his fire powers? She remembered the atrocious picture in the book and held him tighter. "I'm so sorry. That will never happen again. I promise, I promise." When Gideon arrived with the breakfast for Brownie and the baby bottle filled with a warm preparation for Sail that morning, she was still sitting on the floor and crying. "What's going on?" he asked inquisitively. "I slept, and when I woke up the fire was all gone, and it was so cold." Brownie's voice was filled with despair, and she was holding the little demon tightly against her heart. "No, I can't make him warm up any more." Gideon left the breakfast on the table and put his hand on Sail's forehead, and the baby looked at him, smiling between his tears. "What are you talking about?" he said. "He's just fine." Brownie looked at him incredulous, as he walked back to take the baby bottle, and then looked at Sahel, who had stopped trembling and was looking at the baby bottle eagerly. She sighed of relief and wiped her tear. "Give him to me," Gideon said. "You probably didn't sleep enough last night to scare yourself like that." He tried to pick Sahel from her arms, but he clung at her and hid his face against her shoulder. "That's all right," she said. "I'm all right now. I'll take care of him." "If it's only you taking care of him, and if you keep him in your arm like that all the time, he's going to act like a spoiled baby, and you will never be able to get rid of him ever again." Brownie laughed. Sometimes Gideon was really acting like a grown-up. "That wasn't meant to be funny." "That's true. Mom keeps on telling us to give them their own space. You should at least leave him on the armchair while having your breakfast." But Brownie went to sit at the table, still holding Zahel. Gideon sighed helplessly, watching her do. "I guess that was your first nervous breakdown in a long series." "I'll do it, okay? I'll do it as soon as he's gone with his tears period." "Seeing him like that makes me too sad to even think about leaving him." "1 second. And I wouldn't even know if he needs something or wakes up, and he can't even cry like a normal baby." Gideon shook his head. "You couldn't even see that holding him." "I'm a bit tired. Yesterday wasn't the easiest day of my life, and last night wasn't resting either." Remembering her adventure in the dark past gave her a shiver. It took 3 more days and a half for Sahel's tears to stop. Brownie was getting a lot worried at the end, wondering why it was taking so long. Gideon and she managed to keep Sahel's existence a secret. Brownie leaving the secret room only in case of extreme necessity and when Sahel was fast asleep, with Gideon staying in the room just in case. Sahel's wings were turning completely dark green each time Gideon was trying to hold him, and when Brownie was pretending to walk away from him. They didn't really understand what was making him so terrified, but if he was holding useful as Brownie hoped he was, she was thinking that it was his soul which was reacting to a deeper fear of being abandoned again in darkness. That would also explain why she was the only one he trusted, even if she seriously doubted that soul carried any memory of their past host. That day, Brownie was reading the Raise Your Baby Demon book once again, hoping to find out why Sahel's tear had been falling for so long. It had been fast asleep for a few hours. Gideon had brought a basin of warm water earlier this afternoon to give him a bath. He loved the water. He was swashing and throwing water everywhere in the room. Brownie and the carpet around both ended up completely wet. For a moment, as he was in the water, she had forgotten that the water on his face was tear. The bath had made him very tired, and after finishing his baby bottle, he went straight to sleep. As she couldn't find anything about the tear period length that she didn't already know, she started to try guessing over for which element Sahel's power would manifest. The first few weeks of a baby demon's life were critical. If he didn't receive the appropriate care at the appropriate moment, his chances of survival through all the power's acquisition were very low. The only thought of seeing him in pain was already terrorizing Brownie. She was lost deep in her thought when Sahel opened his eyes, stroked them, and yawned slowly, emitting a soft baby sound. She looked down at him and wiped the last tears. "You were awoken? The bath must have been very tiring. You slept for such a long time." Brownie carried him up in front of her and kissed his forehead. For all answer, Sahel started to babble, his wings turning red of astonishment at the sound of his own voice. He started to show his fist a little. Brownie opened big eyes and started to talk to him again. Everything she said was followed by some baby talk. It took her a few minutes to finally realize that Sahel had overcome his tear period. She held him against her chest and started to dance of happiness in the room. "You're not crying anymore." She kissed him tenderly on his dry cheek. "I'm so proud of you. You're the most courageous baby demon ever. I love you. You know that's right, forever and ever." Sahel nodded as if he understood every single word she had said, and started to babble and giggle. Alright, that's all for today, the end of chapter 3. I hope you enjoyed and see you next week for chapter 4. Bye!